Hello everyone. Today we start the second module of this course on moral thinking, and in this module we will talk about some concepts and look at them philosophically, how they make sense of us. So we will look at good, right, duty, justice, equality, love, Purusharthas, and of course we have talked about egoism, altruism, ethical relativism and universalism in certain details. So today I am going to just brief you out in this session about what is the problematic about these concepts that we talk about. The notion of good. Now if you look at the notion of good, good is something, and if you start come down to define, or if you are asked to define what good is, try this exercise and you will find yourself in a quandary. It is easy to identify what is good, or we have a sense of identifying a good person, a good human being, but when asked to elaborate or define what we mean by good, there arises the difficulty. So, and this is in general the phenomenon with philosophical terms, because philosophical terms are also terms that we use in day-to-day life, in our colloquial world that we and lived experience that we inhabit. Yet when we are asked to define it, when we expect a certain level of accuracy, rigor or tightness to these concepts, it starts becoming difficult, and that is where we have the need to theorize it. And how we theorize these crucial moral concepts also determines, as we have earlier seen, the character of the individual, organization, constitution, nation, state. So how do we articulate them? So let us take a simple notion as good. Now when we look at good, what do we mean by good? A good can be something like a good knife and a good person, right? Would these two be the same? And that is a question that opens up in the difficulty, or in a certain sense the ambiguity in the meaning of the word good. So good has a meaning, a sense of being functional. So a good knife is a knife that cuts well, whereas a good person is not a person who is excellent in any particular ability, but it is a moral sense of the term, right? And that itself, and this is a discourse, a lot of philosophical discourse has taken place in defining what do we mean by this term good, and we will come about to it in some detail in the next session. But just to open you up that this is what is the problematic around this idea, and why shall we, or why can we not accept our colloquial understanding of the good. And here let me take a step back and emphasize that how do we handle differences of opinion, and what are basically differences of opinion? Differences of opinion are the differences in the articulation of philosophical terms in our worldview, right? Let me repeat that. Differences in opinion are the articulation of philosophical terms, philosophical concepts in our worldview. So if we want to engage with difference, if you want to understand the other, if you want to argue and not quarrel with the other, argue in the spirit of learning, in the spirit of arriving at the truth or at an equilibrium, we need to understand the other's point of view. And it is here what we hold, or how we articulate, how we understand these philosophical terms will help us make sense of what does the other position mean. So just as a good person in certain milieu may mean somebody who is kind and charitable, in certain other conditions it may mean somebody who is pleasing and who's comforting. So there is a variation on how we understand good, and it is far more complicated than we come out to be. Let us look at the second term, let us look at rights. And two ways of the right is also when you understand it in the terms of as opposed to wrong and as human rights, right, as rights that one has, rights as a sense of entitlement. So, to judge, well, most of the time it is easy to make a judgment, but especially when we are unthinking about the terms as has been articulated by the other. So, when one is expected to take a judgment which involves a term, say, which involves, say, making a call of right and wrong, one needs to understand the frame of reference from which right and wrong is defined. Sense of duty. Duty seems something fairly, now let me put it in forms of certain questions, and you are suppose employed, then, or you are a student, your duty is to study. So, given that your position is from emanating from your position or station in life, there are certain duties that emanate from your position or situation in life. But how do you make a priority between these call for duties? Maybe what you have been paid for, does that become, if you receive a salary for something, does that become your duty exceeding the duty that comes to you as being a child or a sibling? And what is it that powers duty? And then there are philosophers like Immanuel Kant, the what rigorous claims that they make, that all moral life is through a sense of duty, and duty is very well understood as a in contrast with love. So, Immanuel Kant went ahead and his claims implied that when one indulges in an act of assistance from the sense of duty, it is right, but when one indulges from an act of assistance from love or emotion, it turns out to be incorrect. So, there seems to be a conflict between duty and love, that functioning out of duty and functioning out of love, depending on the civilization or milieu that you subscribe to. One might look at duty as something superior to acts powered by love. One may look at acts powered by love as superior to powered by duty. And here again, like we discussed earlier, this is not the judgment is not on exclusively on the nature of the act, but the motivations of the act. The same act can be from a sense of love or from a sense of duty, and when these two moral motivations conflict, which is the one that needs to be chosen? So, what is the kind of frame of reference that we build, that whether we should function out of duty or functioning out of love? Now, if you look at the example of the Bhakti Marg in Indian philosophical tradition, they will play a lot of emphasis on love, that it is things on the moral urge emanates out of love. Vis-a-vis, if you look at the sense of duty, and I think classically one can understand military service as a sense of being powered by the sense of duty, that well, it is a duty that has to be done irrespective of whether one feels for it or does not feel for it. It is duty and therefore it has to be done. So, in that sense it seems mechanical, it seems loveless. So, we will push this I will not say dichotomy, but this tension between duty and love as two moral motivators, right. Then let us look at this notion of justice. Now, justice is quite a deeply not problematic, but a moral notion that exhilarates a lot of emotions and feelings. So, if we look at justice, you find that well, two groups that are probably protesting, maybe in a school, maybe in a college, or maybe out there in a democratic country, both very often seem to be fighting for justice, and both seem to be claiming that we want justice, and both are like loggerheads also. So, for one segment, justice is say X, and for the other segment, justice is not X. So, both are fighting for justice, but how is justice to be defined? Let us take a simple example to flesh it out into an example, so that one can make sense of this. If X has been wronged by Y, then so Y should be punished by X or Z, Z here being the third party, right. Now, if we look at, if two parties are in dispute with each other and one has wronged the other, and that is established, who has the authority to establish it and who has the authority to administer punishment? Say certain medieval senses of justice in many parts of the world always meant that, well, if X has been wronged by Y, or then Y has to inflict an equal damage on X, and that settles justice, right. That revenge is also an action of justice. Most modern democracies function on that, well, if X has been wronged by Y, it is the state Z which will give a punishment to X. So, when we include a third person or a third party that arbitrates and awards punishment, that turns out to be justice, right. Now, then let us look at equality. Now, equality is again a term that it is a favorite term, and most of us, or most people would say that we want equality, we fight for equality, we vouch for equality. But what is equality? Equality of outcome, equality of opportunity, equality of what kind of equality? And that is where the difference in the formation of equality, a difference in the articulation of equality comes into being. So, one level of equality may be equality of opportunity, that all of us deserve an equal opportunity, but can that be ever possible? Because the genes that you are endowed with is something that has come to you from your parents, from your family line. That can that or should that be neutralized in a race? So, if one looks at equality of opportunity, to what level can it be done? Equality of outcome is, well, no matter what you earn, say you should be taxed according to as you earn, so that all of us at the end of the day are equally rich or equally poor. How many of you would vote for such a policy? So, what exactly do we mean by equality and the articulations of equality? So, it is very often possible that opposing protesters opposing each other, both vouch for equality and both are asking for equality, but have different renditions of equality. And finally, we will come to the notion of Purusharthas. Purusharthas would mean what is the goals of human life according to Indian philosophy. So, the goals of life as put out, and a lot of it can be understood in moral terms, and many of us may be familiar as dharma, artha, kama and moksha as the goals of human life. So, some things that gives meaning to human life. So, these are some of the concepts. There are many concepts that we come across, but these are some of the concepts that after this very introductory course you should be able to see the debate behind it. You should be able to identify what kind or what interpretation of this of a particular concept is used in an argument or in a policy or in a state or in a person. So, to first open yourself to look at the possible variations in interpretations, and then to be able to identify the interpretations that we have. So, with this do think over what kind of interpretations that you have come across and where you see a difference. A philosophy class is successful where there is difference, because then we are able to see a variation in interpretation and thereby start a dialogue. So, with this we have a brief introduction of what is going to be done in module 2, maybe a little bit on egoism and altruism, but most of it has been covered in the first module. So, we will look at it as a cursory glance as how it can be revised or put in forth in terms of moral vocabulary. So, the idea for you to do after this course is that you should be able to construct a moral argument. You should be able to first identify the moral positions held and then construct a moral argument using moral concepts, thereby making doing what very often is called as ethical decision making. Okay.